She's not here tonight. Three. There's a quorum. Correct. He has a quorum of 5. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 o'clock, and welcome to the December 11th, 2023 regular meeting of the 882 Monticello School Board. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please let the minutes reflect that we are a board of 5, missing member Melissa Curtis this evening. So I'll entertain an approval to approve the agenda as written. Moved by Jeff Hegle, seconded by Casey Root. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 5-0. We do not have any citizens' comments this evening. Moving on to fiscal stability and our consent agenda, we're going to approve the minutes from December the 4th, the personnel matters, and bill summaries for the month, bills, P-card, Amazon, and wires. For those that are unfamiliar, the board receives all of this information and it is posted for the public to read as well, and we move it as one item on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jamie Sieben, seconded by Mark Branson. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to collaborative connections, we have a resolution for acceptance of donations, and Superintendent Olson will discuss that.
We have an amazing donation from Riverside Church, 15 gift cards to Walmart, $100 each, and it comes at a great time of the year to help families in need. And these are always, in this case, since it's a district-wide donation, they're split up to the buildings, and then each building looks at the needs of their kids and tries to match the need to this great gift from Riverside.
For being resolved by Monticello School Board, gratefully accept the following donation to Riverside Church. $100 Walmart gift cards to provide for families in need of the holiday season.
All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 5-0. Jeff, please turn your microphone on. Moving on to teaching and learning, we have just an announcement for the A item that's on the agenda. We did announce last meeting that we have been selected, our district, to present 2 roundtable presentations at the statewide School Board Association Leadership Convention in January at the Minneapolis Convention Center, which was a very exciting announcement in and of itself. But since last week, we also were notified of another exciting award for our district, and that is that our Monticello Middle School STEM Lab, which we have featured at a number of meetings as a very unique offering in the state, has also been selected to present in the Showcase of Excellence. This is quite an honor for our Monticello Middle School faculty to achieve this, because we are the only school in the school district in the state of Minnesota that has a unique STEM lab like we do. So I really want to applaud the work of the teachers that have started that and maintained it, and offer that to the community as evidence of some of the outstanding work that's being done by our faculty. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Olson?
You know, I will give one more shout out to our transportation partners. Hogan Transportation also has a table where they're going to be doing a discussion, and it's a preliminary look at how to partner with Excel and be a innovative leader for electric technology that may come in the future. So they're just looking at things preliminary and on the front end, and could be we could see something in our very own community, but it's just pre-planning type of work that this roundtable for them is going to be. But obviously, we are excited to, as a school district, be at the MSBA showcase with our middle school STEM lab, and then also our time change.
So I just was given a little note here, and I made a terrible mistake, and I want to apologize to our Monticello High School principals because I missed item 6B on the agenda, and I'd like to backtrack and make sure that we properly recognize our student foreign exchange students that are here, and we have our Monticello principals to introduce that, Matt Colwell and Lori Hanson. Thank you, and I apologize for skipping you.
Minutes, let us bring some of our special students here, students that are new to the building this year and obviously new to the country. So if I could have our foreign exchange students just come on up here. We have 5 in the building this year. One of them, his name is Stella, and she is at home sick right now. So Stella could not be here tonight, but we do have Jan, Garazi, Haifa, and Alex. And so what we'd like to do is just give them a few minutes to talk a little bit about themselves, and they'll introduce themselves. You can kind of guess which countries they're from, if you can, kind of a little bit of person to country match here. So your options are Spain, the Czech Republic, and Italy. 2 of them are from one of those countries, and so you'll have to sort that out. But we'll let them tell us a little bit about themselves and then entertain any questions you might have. Start with Garazi.
I don't have to say where I'm from.
We probably better give them a little bit of a hint, yeah. If you don't want to, let's leave.
I can say it.
Doesn't have much
Yeah.
faith in us.
Hello, my name is Garazi. I am from Spain.
Where? Where
I-
in Spain?
In the north, in the Basque Country, in Donostia, San Sebastian, in the city name. Yeah, I live there with my family, with my mom and my 2 sisters, older sisters. And I think that that's the thing that I most miss from Spain, like my family and my friends. But I'm having a lot of fun here, and I'm having like a great time. I'm playing basketball right now in school, and I had played volleyball in school too. I don't know, like I'm having fun in my classes too. I think that you have like a lot of fun options to do in your classes. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
All right.
Garazi.
Thank you. I can just go.
No, stay up there.
They may have questions for you. They may have questions, yeah. This is Haifa.
Hi, my name is Haifa. I'm from Indonesia, specifically in Semarang, Central Java. It's not the capital, but it is the capital of my region. And I have 1 little brother and mother and a father. The size of my city is approximately 2,600 miles square. There is 1.6 million people live there. And what I miss the most about my country, probably the food, because we have spicy food. I cannot find spicy food in here. And my friends and my family. And I having a lot of fun in here. I met a lot of friends in the swimming team, in the school, in the classes, and I experienced a new family, which is exciting. And any activities I do now is knowledge bowl and classes that is the most hard for me now is literature, especially we're reading Great Gatsby now, and there's a lot of vocabularies and grammars that I don't understand because it's really old and it's really long. So, yeah. Thank you.
Nice job.
So, hello, I'm Alex. I'm from Spain, from Barcelona. And yeah, I'm actually not from Barcelona. I'm from a city called Sabadell that has 300,000 people. My family in Spain consists of my mother, my father, and my sister. And right here I have my host mother, my host father, a brother, and a sister. And I'm having a lot of fun. I miss my friends and my family in Spain, but I think school here is much bigger installations, and there's a lot of good people, so I'm making friends. I wanted to play some soccer as a fall sport, but I broke my foot the first day of tryouts. But now I'm better, I'm playing basketball, and I'm happy, and I'm having a lot of fun, and yeah.
And I was watching him during basketball practice today. His,
Yeah.
his technique is good. He was shooting some long-range threes, so that was cool.
Yeah.
So I'm Hansa. I'm from Czech Republic. About my family.
Where?
So
Where in the Czech, I know
Republic.
where in the Czech Republic.
Gotcha.
Brad.
all right, Moravia, which is east side. About my family. So I got a younger sister and brother and 2 dogs. What I'm missing? Probably, of course, friends, family, and food, maybe. Well, I play hockey, as you can see. I found some friends in football, American football, and sometimes watch that. It's not that bad, I thought. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so just a brief introduction. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Are you here for the whole year or just one semester? The whole year.
All in it to win it, yeah.
Excellent. Just to make you guys feel at home, is there anybody in the room that's been to Spain? How about the Czech Republic? Indonesia? What was the fourth one? Italy?
She's not here today.
Italy? I mean, we're reasonably well-traveled, we Monticelloans, so welcome, and hopefully you can find some foods and things that make you feel at home, and, you know, Zoom with your families or FaceTime and that sort of thing, but enjoy your year here. There's a lot of nice people. It's a really great experience that you're lucky to have. So, you guys have anything?
Did any of your siblings also do study abroad?
Oh, my sister says that.
I just want to note how incredible these students are, because they're not only coming to a foreign country and speaking not their primary language, but then they're also participating in all of these activities, and some being very challenging. I know Haifa had never swam before, and she came and joined the high school swim team and did a phenomenal job. So I know I can speak to a few of them, but that's a lot of extra commitment on top of your studies in a language that's not your primary language. So I just want to commend you for what you're doing, and we notice you and we know how hard you're working, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
And thanks for coming to a board meeting tonight. We really appreciate it. It's nice to put names and faces and together with programs, students.
Thank you so much for being here, and I think we want to give you a round of applause.
So now we will resume back to section 7 on the agenda and get back to teaching and learning, item B. I already did A, so we can skip on to B. And we're going to welcome Director of Teaching and Learning Cindy Foshing to give us our annual briefing on the world's best workforce and the combined annual report. And welcome Cindy to the board.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I know in a previous meeting, we went over some of our school data already, but tonight is, like Ms. Ziebarth said, it is the combined annual report that we are required to give to the school district on our goals for the world's best workforce and achievement and integration. Let's see, I can do this myself here. So I just want to start with just a few slides that'll give you, again, a review of the data that we talked about before, and it'll give you some background on some of the goals that we had set for ourselves and why we set them, and then we'll look at the results. So again, these are just our demographics. So keeping in mind, this is a report from everything we did last year, all right? So these were our demographics last year as far as race and ethnicity. So as you can see, we're becoming a more and more diverse district with 79.9% white, and then that would be 20.1% not white. Some of the other categories that we look at, or MDE looks at, is our percent enrollment by free and reduced lunches. That was 35.3%, students receiving special ed, 15.6%, EL enrollment, 4%, and homeless, 0.4%. This is just our progress towards English language proficiency with our EL students. So you can see for Monticello, we were at 55% altogether progress towards proficiency. Statewide, it was 47.3. You can see that our elementary students tend to make more progress. They're usually in the program a little bit longer. Oftentimes, the students that we're seeing at the middle school and high school, sometimes they're new to country. Coming in middle school and high school, it makes it a lot more difficult for them. Whereas when they start when they're younger ages, they can progress a lot faster. So it's a little bit of the data behind that. But you can see with the middle school and high school, our rates were quite a bit lower. And this data did push us to add EL staffing to both our middle school and high school last year. These are four-year graduation rates across the whole district. So you'll see the trends from 2019 to 2023. Just so that you know, 2023 graduation rates actually aren't published by MDE official rates until January. So I really won't have those results for you yet, but I'll get them to you as soon as I find them. So you can see that we had an increase in 2021 from 2020, but then we had a little bit of a dip to 2022. A couple of our groups that did dip were our white students and then our EL students. The other groups actually went up a little bit. Then when we look at the high school in particular, rather than the entire district, look at the high school in particular, the rates are a little bit higher. The goal is 95%. That's what the state sets as our graduation goal. So 95% across the district, so we're very, very close. Reading across the district, you will see, I think I skipped one. I'm going to go backwards. Math. So math across the district, these are MCA rates over the last 6 years. And if you look just over on the left-hand column, those are the total proficiency rates. So you can see that we started to have an increase until 2018. Then we had that COVID hit, right? So then we started to see a decrease. We started to come up a little bit in 2022. And as you know, in 2023, our test scores went down kind of across the board. Same is true in reading. You'll see that same sort of pattern where it went down in 2019 and 2021. 2020, by the way, there was no testing at all, so that's why you see that gap in there. And then it went up a little bit in 2022 and then back down again. Participation rates compared to others in the state. That means what percentage of our students take the MCA tests. So you can see that we are behind in math, reading, and science for participation rates, and those are averages statewide, so we are below the state average for participation. We've talked about that before, trying to find ways to increase participation on our MCA tests. It is very important to us. It's one of our pieces of data that we use to improve programming. MCA testing is not used to judge a student in particular. We use the overall data to look at programming and improvements needed. And then we look at the results to really delineate down into math, reading, and science what particular areas are we weakest at so we can improve. So that's really important data for us. Spread the word. We really need their help in participating. So now we'll look at the World's Best Workforce Summary. As you know, the World's Best Workforce has 5 goal areas. The one is our children ready for school. The second is, can third graders read at grade level? The third is to close the racial and economic achievement gaps that exist in our district. The fourth is college and career readiness. And then the fifth is graduation rates. So when you look at whether or not our children were ready for school, our first goal was with preschool. And our goal was to be more than 90%, which again is what the state is asking for. To be more than 90% of our students are judged as prepared for kindergarten for the TS Gold testing that we do. And so we actually had spring data that said that we were at 93.7% prepared. And that means that all the way around, students are prepared to enter kindergarten to be a learner, prepared for the learning environment of a school. It doesn't necessarily mean that there were a lot of academics learned in pre-K. It means that they've had the social adjustments, they've learned how to do school, they've learned how they're physically able to do school, they have some cognitive abilities to learn, and so that's what that is judging. Our second goal was kindergarten, and our goal was to decrease the number of students who were at high risk or some risk on our early reading FastBridge screening tests. We wanted to decrease the number of students at risk from 57% in the spring to 45% in 2023. That was kind of a lofty goal. We probably set that way too high. That was like a 12% decrease that we were looking for. We did have a decrease to 53%, so our goal was not met, but we made improvements, so that was a good sign. The second goal area is that third graders can read at grade level. And so the first goal is using MCA testing, and the second goal is using FastBridge screening. So the goal with MCA testing is that we would increase from 56.8% proficiency to a 61%. We actually dropped down to a 52.5 instead of raising. And so that's where that one landed. Goal number 2, again, was to decrease the number of students who were at high risk or some risk with our early reading and A reading spring assessments. We wanted to decrease from 27% of our students who were at risk to 25%. And just so you know, students at risk are the students who receive Title I or intervention support. And so the higher the number of students at risk, the more staffing we need to help those students who are receiving those interventions. So we're looking to lower that at-risk rate. Down to 25%, it actually increased up to 34% for our third graders. So if you can imagine 34% of our third graders who are needing intervention help in reading, that takes a lot of staffing, and so we're being very creative in the way that we're doing that. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end on what we're doing. The third area was closing racial and economic achievement gaps between population groups. And then the first goal area was between white students and Hispanic groups. The second goal area is between free and reduced students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, and then those who do not. So on the first one, we wanted to decrease, again, that gap that we see in our MCA testing from a 22.3% gap to a 19.3%, looking at a 3% reduction in that. And instead, we saw an increase in our gap, so our gap is up to 27.3% achievement. The proficiency gap for free and reduced lunch, we would like a decrease from 21.1 to 18.1. Instead, we saw a decrease to 19. It's still a decrease, so that's a really good sign. Not quite to 18.1, but we're really close. We're getting there. The third area here was between our English learners and our non-English learners, to look at that gap between those. So we wanted to see that gap of a 48.6% down to a 45.6% gap, which is still a really big gap, but right, we wanted to make a 3% dent in it. It did increase down or decrease down to 44.8, so we met that goal. So we went down 4%, closed that gap a little bit more. And then the last gap is between the non-special ed students and the special education students, wanting to decrease that from 30.3 down to 27.3, and instead we saw an increase just barely up to 30.9. The fourth area was career and college readiness. So under career and college readiness, our goals had to do with closing the enrollment gaps in rigorous courses, including more students from free and reduced lunch and students of color in those courses. So the first one is for our students on free and reduced lunch, and then comparing to those who are not. In our CIS courses, we wanted to reduce that gap from 9.6 to 6.6, and instead the gap increased to 14%. So not quite enough students enrolling in those courses. Our AP gap from 5.9 to 2.9 was our goal. And it actually went way up to 20.8%. And a 20.8% gap was about where we were at about 5 years ago. So for some reason last year we had a huge gap in our AP course enrollment for our students who qualify for free and reduced lunches. The second goal, like I said, has to do with the gap between white students and students of color. For CIS courses, we wanted to reduce it down to a 3.8% gap if possible. The goal actually went up to 7.8%. For AP courses, however, the gap went from 9.2 down to 2.8. So we made a really significant gap in our AP courses with students of color. So many more students enrolled in those courses. And then our third goal area was the percentage of our juniors who take the ECT test who meet all 4 college readiness benchmarks in English, reading, science, and math. And we wanted to increase the number of those to 37.9%, and instead it went down to 30.9%. That has a lot to do with the number of students taking an ACT test nowadays. We went all the way down to 110 students compared to in the past we would have had in the high 100s and 200s of kids taking those. That's because colleges are not requiring the ACT test any longer. So. And then our last goal area for the World's Best Workforce is students will graduate from high school. So our first goal area was to increase across the high school to 96.3%. And like I said, the data's not in yet. I'm hoping we're going to be there. Preliminary data does point to the fact that we might be there. And then the second goal area was specific to our Hispanic Latino population because that was our lowest number. We wanted to increase that to 92%. So again, fingers crossed, I'll let you know where we're at with that one. And then again, those who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Oh, that one was the lowest, actually. It was 86.3 last year, where the Hispanic students were 90%. So again, we're looking for that 2% increase across the board in graduation rates. Any questions on World's Best Workforce before I move to achievement integration, or we can wait till the end? I think I only have 4 more.
I'll just wait till the end.
This is the summary of achievement and integration plan. And so there are always 3 goal areas to your achievement and integration plan. You want to increase the racial and economic integration across your district or within other districts. We want to reduce achievement disparities and increase access to effective and diverse teachers. We try very hard to make our achievement and integration goals match our World's Best Workforce goals, if at all possible. So our new achievement and integration plan, they match very much. This is an old achievement and integration plan that's started in 2020, but it was actually developed in 2018. So in the year 2018, 2019, the goals were set for 3 years to come, and then COVID hit. So the goals were lofty as they were set. COVID came and really interrupted a lot of the ability to integrate or even complete a lot of the goals, and the state understands that. I just wanted you to know that ahead of time. So this is just a summary over the 3 years of our achievement and integration plan. The first goal was that our students on free and reduced price lunches in math proficiency would increase 3% per year. And the baseline was at 48% in 2019. Remember, we didn't test in 2020. So then we had to go up to 2021 as our first year to measure. So our targets were 51, 54, 57, and we actually came out to much lower than each one of those. So that's where we landed with free and reduced price lunch, students who qualify for free and reduced price lunches. So that's the first goal area. The second one, same population, but reading proficiency. Again, baseline was 49.9. Again, we were looking for a 3% increase across the board, up to hopefully 58.9 at the end of this school year. We landed on 42%, so pretty far below our goal regionally. And again, there's a lot of interruption, a lot of things that happened. And our third goal area was to increase participation and enrollment, students on free and reduced lunches in educational enrichment opportunities. We measured those in our AP and CIS classes, like we talked about with World's Best Workforce. We started with, in 2019, only 1% of our student population. If we added up all of our rigorous courses, those CIS and AP and PSEO courses, there's only a 1% of the population was free and reduced lunch. And then, so we did grow quite a bit all the way across the board. So I think doing a really good job by growing it. But again, we have some gaps. But the growth is good. We didn't quite hit 10% with students of color by the end, but we were well over with free and reduced rates. And then our last goal area was competency of teachers, and it comes under the goal type of teacher equity and using strategies for culturally competent pedagogy, culturally responsive teaching. So over the past 3 years during the life of this plan, we did a lot of training in the beginning and over the COVID time. We offered some professional development. So we really ended up to be about 85% of our teachers who are trained in that. We've had a year's gap in there, so we're going to really work on beefing that up a little bit. And then the last thing was access to diverse teachers. The state does call us to try to increase the diversity of our workforce, to try to more closely match the demographics of your school. And so if we look at the demographics of our school, altogether we have 358 classroom teachers, including licensed professionals. And of those, we have 8 non-white classroom teachers, which is only 2.2%, where our district is at 20.1%. And if we actually did the math of 20.1% of 358, we would have 72 teachers. And so we have a ways to go. And again, we've talked about the importance and the research behind increasing the diversity of our workforce. So that's the data on that. Some of the things that we're doing to address our shortages in our goal areas. So we're going to be looking at the goal areas that we did not meet. Again, we've redrawn a new achievement integration plan. We have implemented MTSS across our district and have done quite a bit of training on reading intervention, reading instruction, new curriculum, all the way across the elementary, and now we're working on across middle school with that, training across all of our teachers of reading, so that will hopefully help us. We're working on family engagement opportunities and how to really connect with our families more, become a partner to our families. So we're hoping that that will also help. So I'm reaching the end. There is a link to a Google survey on here, and anybody can click on that. So if you have some questions that you want to ask that you don't get a chance at, that goes for the public as well. You can click on that, ask your question. It's a one-question survey. What questions do you have? And then it also says, asks you if you want me to contact you or one of us to contact you, we would do that. So that's what's on the survey. All right.
Does the board have any discussion or questions for Cindy Flashing?
You want to go first? Or just...
You can go first.
So I see a lot of goals that are not met.
Yep.
And if we go back to all third graders can read at a grade level, if you want to pull that slide up.
Yeah, it should be about here. Oh, no, okay. Should be right here.
Yep, so this is one of the first ones. So we hear a lot of generalities on making improvements.
Yep.
You can give a specific
Sure.
on what we're doing to bring these numbers up, and then the second part is, why do we set our targets so low?
Well, for example, goal number 1, low as in you think it should be up to 80, or it would be probably an impossibility to make an improvement from 56.8 to 80.
So if we're only doing 3% a year, why is that 3% an acceptable amount, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so generally, when you're working towards change and improvements, they won't come within the first year or 2, or even sometimes it'll take 3 to 5 years to make significant change, especially when it comes to instruction and academic achievement. So the research would say that it would be very unrealistic to set a goal that's nearly impossible to make. I would venture to say no one in the state made 80%, or our state average would be much higher. But.
So what do you think is the main reason why our goals are dropping?
Well, I think there are probably a lot of things. We also, across the state, set a record high rate for poor attendance, or our attendance rates, right? So students are in school, students don't learn. We're learning a lot more about reading instruction. and what it takes and why students are falling through the cracks. So there's a nationwide effort to change that as well as statewide effort, as you can see through the READ Act, right? There's also, of course, COVID that hit in there. And along with that came a lot of not just learning loss, but a loss of how to come to school and learn. And so for students, it's taking quite a bit of time to get back into the swing of rigor, pushing themselves, homework. Same with families. Families are busier too. There's just many, many reasons. So one of the things that we're doing all the way across K through 5 to address the reading, especially the reading concerns, is we've implemented what's called flexible grouping, or walk to read, it's called. And so during that foundational block of time, that's 40 to 45 minutes, well, I should say 30 to 45 minutes, depending upon your building, students have been tested on exactly where they belong in the phonemic awareness and phonological skills that they're missing in their reading instruction. It's almost always a phonetics issue. So we're placing those students in groups to meet their needs during that time in order to accelerate their learning and pick up all the things that they maybe missed over the last 3 years.
So that was done this whole year?
You started that. Some schools dabbled in it last year and started it last year, but across the board, we have started that this year in our 3 elementary buildings. So students are getting that, and then also they're getting access to core curriculum. So if you're a 3rd grader who's struggling with reading, you might be getting some first and 2nd grade phonetics, but you'll be getting 3rd grade comprehension and knowledge building curriculum. So they're getting both. I believe we have 2 of the top, for sure 5, curriculum resources out there, if not 2 of the top 2 curriculum resources out there. So I'm hoping that we'll see a change with that. Not immediately. It takes a couple years. It's a big change in instruction. And so as teachers get better and better at the instructional strategies that are embedded in these new curriculum resources we're using, the more and the more students will respond. So we're doing that. We've hired reading coaches who are going in, they're modeling for teachers, they're working side by side with teachers on best practice. We're partnering with Carrie through the University of Minnesota, and we're doing ongoing training on how to coach our teachers and how to improve our reading skills. So doing about everything that we possibly can think of.
Cindy, could you discuss the FastBridge screenings? That I know you're doing those a little more often or doing them a little differently than they've been done in the past.
So
And what you're doing with that data?
Yeah, so our FastBridge screening, the law says that you have to screen twice a year. We are screening 3 times a year. We have been doing that. We've added middle school to our screening process now, and so they're also screening in math and reading all the way up to 8th grade then. And so what we've also done at the elementary level is we've put together a screening team. So this team of teachers has normed their practices, so they're all screening the exact same way. They're going in and they're pulling the kids out and they're doing the screening, and then they're gathering that data, and then our principals are looking at that data weekly or every other week with their teams, and they're looking at not just that data, but there's weekly data that comes with both curriculum resources we just purchased. So they're scouring through all the data to be sure kids are in the right groups, to be sure they're catching kids that might have been missed before, because now we just have so much data to look at. So we're really learning a lot about how to use our data to improve our instruction, not just with FastBridge, but also with functional phonics and with Amplify. The FastBridge also gives you the intervention skills that you can try with your students, and all the strategies. And so you can go in and you can look at your particular student and you can say, this student needs this strategy, pull them one-on-one during win time and use that strategy with them. So they've really learned a lot about how to use the resources we already had and how to use our new resources. They've got a lot on their plate, so it takes a couple of years for sure for them to get better at this.
For the purpose of maybe some parents or citizens that might not understand how a FastBridge screening is conducted, could you just go over that briefly and describe how much time it takes and how intensive a process that is or is not?
Yeah. So I have not given the fast bridge test, so where's my helpers? Just like, I'm not coming up. So in kindergarten and first grade, the test is read to the students. And then starting in second grade and up, it's computerized. And so they will take the test on the computer. So it's measuring fluency, automaticity, it's measuring vocabulary, it's measuring whether or not they can read nonsense words, for example, is a big indicator of whether or not a student has the phonics skills that they need. It tests for dyslexia. It takes they vary, but they probably take 15 to 20 minutes. Maybe in middle school, it takes more, close to half an hour, but that's it. It's not like a big MCA test that goes a week long or anything like that. So it's within a class period screening that happens.
And then that information is shared with parents.
Yes, and it's shared in the fall and in the spring, so you see where they started and then where they ended. And then we use that year-long data for improvement as we go. Yes. So there's a parent progress report that'll get sent home in the fall and the spring. Yep. Other questions?
Any other questions from the board?
Unless someone else wants to jump in.
I don't have any questions. I just got to be part of this process this last year. So Cindy does this yearly review like she had stated. And then from that, based on the numbers that were brief, which last year was the first year that we had quantifiable data since COVID to work off of. And so that's what, there was a group or a committee of individuals, and then we digested the information, and the new curriculum was a huge part of resetting and getting where we needed to be in order to watch these scores go back up where they need to be. So I do know it's a long process. It's not, we just see her once a year, do this briefing, and maybe we'll see you one more time after the new goals are set. But a lot of work goes into it, and it's good because we had established that the curriculum needed to be updated. And so though the timing, was a little later than I, as a school board member, would have loved to have that curriculum brought to our students, knowing that it was a downward trend that we were looking at. It's here now, so that's good.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the teachers and or the students would have had the capacity to do all this heavy lift that they're doing this year. And it's hard this year. Ask any one of them, they'll tell you all they're exhausted by the end of the day. But they're doing such a great job and digging right in. And if you ask kids about what they're learning, ask them. They'll tell you all the new things that they're learning, more than probably you and I know about a lot of different things. It's amazing. Yeah.
Cindy, how do you think we'll know if the curriculum or the reading coaches or the heavy lifting or the work at home, which one of those will be attributed to the success if we meet the goals? And if we don't meet the goals a year from now, then how do we know which one of those areas to fix?
Yeah, so we're implementing, along with the reading coaching, we're looking at a fidelity checking. So we're going to be looking at ways we can go in and help teachers identify areas they might need extra help with as far as instruction, or that they might be missing as far as instruction, and really making sure that they're utilizing both curriculum resources as they were designed to be, so that we can actually measure the results. So first we have to make sure we're using things with fidelity before we say, oh, it's the curriculum, right? So there's a couple different things that we'll be doing. We'll be providing all of that support, and we'll be helping teachers self-evaluate. And I really do expect we're going to see an increase in scores. It's not probably going to be the huge increase we all want to see. That's going to take a couple of years, again, before people can master the curriculum the way it needs to be mastered, because it's so huge. But I do think we're going to see an increase at the end of the year. Fingers crossed, everybody, right?
I have another question on this slide. All students are ready for a career in college, if you want to pull that one up. And I see we have 2 high school principals in the audience. Can we bring them up so I can ask them a question? That's fine. My question has to do with the CIS gap. What do you guys think is the main drivers behind this goal not being met right here.
So this slide is on the free and reduced, and then this one is on.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that one. Yep.
So will you ask your question again so we can make sure that we can clarify?
So on the result for all students are ready for career and college, I see goal 1, you have to go up. This doesn't match the one that I have.
Oopsie, sorry. Yep.
There we go. This guy right here. So if we look at CSI gap, 9.6 in 2022 to 14.3 in 2023, and also the gap 5.9 to 20.8. I guess I would like your guys' opinion on what do you think the main drivers are behind this?
I think there's a lot of reasons. I think that's part of the conversation that we've been here multiple times to share. I don't know that, I think there's a number of things.
I know I put you on the spot, so it's.
Sure, and I want to make sure that I'm thoughtful with this. I don't know that our kids know, we're coming out of a big hole. When we look at offerings, I don't know that our offerings reached enough students to make it career or college ready. I think there was a heavy focus historically on the college ready. I think we've made a shift over the last 2 to 3 years of making it more career ready. We're trying to diversify our offerings, diversify our language, diversify our programming and approach to make sure that every kid that comes in as a 9th grader understands that there's a trajectory. We want to help them find it. So when we look at some of the offerings that were labeled as CIS AP, they had a very heavy college track. I don't know that they've married the CTE track, and I think that's maybe where what our next presentation is, but I don't know that fit the niche or the need for every student. And I think that's where we're truly trying to diversify. When we bring something to you or when we propose something, is it a broader spectrum that it could be a 2-year, 4-year university level, or could it go into workforce and get relevant credits that way? That's my
Yeah,
really brief
I think the other
summary.
component to that is the students, because of the tracking, right? So take a class, for example, AP Bio. They would have probably been in honors bio as a sophomore, and if they weren't, or as a sophomore, and if they weren't identified as a freshman to get into that, there's a ripple effect down the line. So students can't just leap into a lot of those courses, or they could try, but it's not successful. And there are teacher recommendations based on previous years. Students can't jump into a CIS Spanish class if they haven't, gone through Spanish 3. And so the ripple effect didn't just start this year. It is something that's carried over from previous years as well.
So then, go ahead.
It was additionally, I think we've been trying to be more intentional that when we see those students that are maybe on the cusp of leaning into some of those CIS or AP classes, that we have more supports around them to be able to bridge some either academic gaps, whatever gap may be needed, to give them the supports to get into the advanced level courses.
So do you think this goal is going to jump back to this 2.9 and 6.6, or is going to be somewhere in between next year?
I'd love to shake the magic 8 ball and say yes, but I'm not going to sit here and say, do I think that we're more intentional and more purposeful about the types of courses we're looking to bring in? I do. I think that when we sit with our staff or with our career coordinators or our counselors, any of the team, and we want to really look at where do we want us to be, I think we're diversify pathways. For us to come and say, here's a core class that really is a rigorous course, but it really is very singular 4-year university track that doesn't feel like we're meeting the needs. So when we bring in CIS classes, healthcare field, or within the industrial tech department, within more of our offerings, I feel like that opens up opportunities. We got the CIS Intro to Ed classes we're running in our 2nd year. those are creating opportunities for more kids to gain more college credit in more pathways.
Thank you for the commentary on that, but I think it's important that we go back to what we're looking at here is not every kid every day. We're looking at some of the students in each one of these slides. So it doesn't say that of the 4,000 plus enrolled, we have 20%. You know, we're talking about a percentage here, and then the next slide represents 20% of our enrollment.
Yeah, I think it was 35% at the top. So this would be 35%.
So to that point, the numbers change drastically with just a few students sometimes. A few students can really influence the percentages quite a bit.
Right.
And, I mean, to Lori's point, our next presentation, I think there's 3 CIS classes, so more opportunities in CIS classes for every student. Drive up more students in each of those little categories.
And if I understand this correctly, Cindy, we don't choose the conditions of the world best workforce. I mean, those are given to us, so
Those are given
we
to
didn't independently select those groups to pull out and look at the data. We're directed to do that.
I just want to make sure it doesn't give everybody here an impression. You talk about something for half an hour and all of a sudden my mind can go over here and think, well, only, you know, this many kids in our whole school is performing at this level, but we got to get back to this is achievement and integration.
Yes.
That's fine.
Yeah. And just, if you remember 2 years ago, we received the rigorous course grant, right? And the purpose behind that grant was add the courses that Lori just talked about so that any student can access any college level course. There's something out there for everyone. That was the purpose behind that. So I do expect these to see them change. AP courses are a different beast. They're very, very college entrance kinds of courses. They tend to be quite rigorous to pass a test to get the credits, right? So, and they are small in enrollment typically, so a couple of students does make a big difference, and so that's why you see such big change, because it was at 5.9 last year. It's just.
One of the things that we try to do is connect our strategic plan to these types of data and what we're actually doing. And as a board, we've said academic achievement is our number one charge, is to oversee that and to promote it and work on that in every way possible. And so I thank you for bringing us the data this year. Thanks to the principals for adding some additional helpful information for that as well. Is there any more discussion from the board?
On the 6-year trend, MCA math proficiency district-wide, right now, if you want to go to that slide. I only have 2 more questions.
Okay.
Right now we're at 57, 58%. So if we're only going up 3% a year, it's going to get us back to that 72%. Is there a reason why we can't increase that to 4%?
So right now, we're under math curriculum review, and the new math standards just came out. So that's the other thing that's kind of difficult with looking at MCA scores because, for example, the new language arts standards just came out in 2020. So we began to implement those standards, but the MCA test is still testing on the old standards. We're teaching the new standards. And so there's a little bit of this going on. The same thing is going to be true with math, and the same thing is true in science. And so there'll be some years where there'll be a perfect match, but not usually. And so that's a little bit of it, but we're under math review right now, so we'll be taking a really close look at the new standards, taking a really close look at our curriculum, which really needs to be outdated. The last time that they updated math standards was 2011. So they're very old. And so I'm hoping that throughout that process, we'll be able to make some significant changes. So I do think we could start to go up maybe 5% a year rather than 3%. Yeah.
To set a goal and hit the target.
I know.
That's really what I'm after, is us setting a goal and working with everyone.
90% is the target, really, for the state, but.
Last year there was a lot of goals not met. This year there's a lot of goals not met. It's just this recursive over and over and over process that I think we need to put a little more effort into.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the unification that we've done, I will say that this is our first year resetting the curriculum, the tools for our teachers, and then the unified look at each building and district goals. So like we were around the buildings today as a cabinet and building principals and looking at the data and making sure that the goals that we're working towards are going to be met, and we are establishing those tools. We are developing a system that has that accountability. It's, the baseline for me personally really is this year, to me, because this is where we've reset who we are and what we believe in. And so to go back and hold us accountable for all the times of both during a worldwide pandemic, and not to say we stopped during that time, we jumped in before where we were told to. And so we believe we're on the right course, and now we just need to make sure that we keep going, like you said, Casey. And I think this is a really good discussion for the board to have, because when you talk about every kid every day, what you're really saying is that every cell size matters, and that you're going to dive into conversations and hold each other accountable for learning about every cell size, not just doing the same thing that would be good for the 80%, but making sure that you're doing what's good for the 80%, 4%, the 9%, the 3%. You're looking at all these. So I think questions like this and pausing, like, we want them.
Yeah, like
It's
my
important.
intent, my intent isn't to not chastise. It's
No, we don't feel that. We
where we
want to,
can make improvements and
Absolutely.
goals, make sure they're achievable. But I also, I want to make sure we don't set goals just so they're easy to achieve, so we say we met a goal.
if you remember back
Really,
to
we didn't do that.
Eastview, earlier this year, they went way past that. There's some buildings that we're comfortable with it. There's some buildings that we have to go slower because they've been in the system longer and maybe haven't individually and or collectively as a student body been able to make those gains. So then that wouldn't be a good one for an administrator or leader to put forth. But in our newest learners, I know our administration felt comfortable pushing that. And there'll be times when we maybe feel comfortable, when we, maybe get into the swing of 2 to 3 years in all the elementary ranks where, your teachers are in that swing of being proficient with the curriculum and tools that they're using, that will be ready to be pushing that past that 2 to 3%. But, I don't look down on anybody. They have to look at their data and see where people are, and does it match, and is the staff ready to move what the needs are. And we're developing a lot of those skills and curriculum adoption, and we will be ready because we're on that track. But I think this is a really good conversation here today. I really appreciate it.
We've had quite a lot of discussion about the letters training too for our teachers of our youngest students, and that was made a priority before it was really directed by the legislature in this district. And we implemented a lot of the things that came out of the last legislative session as mandates before they were mandates. But I'm also aware that whenever you make a change like that in how you're going to conduct your instruction, you usually get a dip on your graph for a period of time before you get the hook.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you get a big J hook or do you get a nice ski slope?
I hope it's
So I think we're moving in the right direction. We're hopeful that we'll make some difference this year. We've really put a big push on, especially with getting the teachers through that very onerous, very lengthy amount of training that they have to do.
Yeah.
What did I hear? It was 80% of our teachers are done with it or something now?
So we're up to almost 80 teachers who are done.
They're done.
For training, and then we'll have another group starting in probably May.
And that's hundreds of hours of instruction on
120.
science of learning, of reading, phonics instruction, all that. So hopefully that will make a difference that we'll see also a year or two down the road.
And I know we are above the state average on there, but I don't want us to settle and say, well, to me, that's just an excuse. It's like, well, we're above the state average, so let's stop. Just want to make sure we don't. Thank you.
Nobody wants to be average.
Thank you.
That was it.
Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Now we're going to be moving back to our two high school principals, Lori Hanson and Matt Colwell are going to join us to go through the proposal for new courses at the high school. I just want to preface their presentation with, this is not the first time that the board has heard about this. This is the culmination of that process. However, we're going to have you go through it in detail for the public and the parents that are watching as well.
Good. Well, thank you for having us here, and we're actually going to turn it over to, we've got 2 staff members here to help just share a little bit of the courses. We're bringing 5 to you for approval tonight. And as we just had talked briefly about, they really are, we're trying to be very mindful in the offerings that we bring here for approval so that it truly diversifies the academic programming, the CT alignment, the mandates that come to us, all of kind of the boxes that we need to check. So first, introduce Heather Lindman, and then Tony Chido. They will just kick it off, and then we'll pause for some questions and clarifications. But I'm going to have Heather come on up.
All right, my name is Heather Lindman. I first want to shout out my foreign exchange student, Stella. I have her in ceramics. She's wonderful. I'm sorry she couldn't be here today. It would have been awesome for you all to meet her. So, my name is Heather Lindman. I'm an art instructor at Monticello High School. I'm here today to propose a unified art course. This course would take place beginning next fall with 1 or 2 sections to be added. With the news of the trimester schedule, I know that we in the art department are excited to begin offering some more elective options for our students. Our target audience for this course would be general education students grades 10 through 12 alongside students grades 9 through 12 receiving special education services. This course would fall under the arts and human services pathways. The unified art course would combine students of all abilities to participate in developmentally appropriate activities. Students would work together to increase confidence in visual arts, both individually and as a group, participating in authentic art experience in a wide variety of art media and building relationships with their peers. The unified program at Monticello High School has been tremendously successful in maintaining a safe and healthy culture in school through the relationships built between students and their peers, bolstering acceptance and respect. It has also sparked amazing leadership. In fact, the reason I'm presenting here today is because of a couple of our students at Monticello High School who have taken part in the unified program at MHS. They had attended unified PE and unified music and saw a need for a unified art course. I was asked by them this past fall about how we could put their idea into action. So here I am. I think that a unified art course would be a fantastic opportunity to leverage the arts as a community building experience within our school. My colleague Andrea Mitchell and I would have this course up and running by working within the art department together on writing curriculum. We would charge a $25 lab fee per student, which is a standard fee across all art classes. We use that for like consumable materials and supplies that the kids take home with them as their art projects. We would welcome paraprofessionals as well into our classrooms if they're assigned to specific students. Please consider accepting our proposal for a unified art course, and thank you so much for your time.
We're just going to keep rolling through the last 4. Do you want us to pause for questions and clarification after each course? All right, appreciate that. Then we'll bring Chido up, who is one of our career pathway coordinators.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a career pathway coordinator up at the high school. Again, Tony Chido. We are looking to add a couple courses to our course offerings, again, to diversify what we have for those high school students. The first one I'm here to talk about, the CIS, Human Relations and Multicultural Education course. This course would be taught by Andrea Hogg. She has met the criteria to be able to teach a CIS course that ARC Anoka Ramsey Community College we partner with when we're bringing in this course, and they have criteria to which they need to have met before we can identify someone that can teach it, and Andrea happens to meet that criteria. It would be part of the education pathway course offering, so this would help beef up and bring in more offerings to continue to develop and allow our students to think about having a career in education post-high school. We'd like to get this going for next year. We want to add one section. We are working with ARCC right now to decide if it's a 1 trimester or a 2 trimester, given the curriculum and the content and the time needed to be able to get through all of the rigorous course and college curriculum that they provide. It is recommended, or it's for all students 10th through 12th grade. It does fulfill the ethnic studies elective that MDE just has put out there for all high schools to be able to put into place. And so we could use it for that reason. We also are using it for anybody that's going to be pursuing a career in education and training in the human services pathway. Going off of the CIS question that you had earlier, one of the pieces of that is that you have to have a certain GPA to be able to enroll in those courses. And so if you don't have that GPA met, then you're not going to be able to get into a CIS course. And for Anoka Ramsey, that happens to be 3.0 for sophomores and 2.6 for juniors and seniors. And for those students that are on the cusp of that are very close, that we want to see be able to get enrolled into a rigorous course, there's wraparound services put into place to help those students be able to reach those goals by also saying, hey, what we can do for you? I see that you have this going on in this class. How can I help fulfill that gap? Do we need to have time together? Do you need to organize study time? Do you need a peer tutor? What is a plan that we can put into place so that you can reach that piece so that you can then apply to go and into the 2.6 or the 3.0 GPA requirements for the concurrent enrollment partners that we have, like Anoka Ramsey. Let me see, anything else that I'm missing that would be good for you guys to know in this proposal? You know, along with it being part of our education and training pathway and fulfills the ethnic studies elective, it could fulfill a social studies, science, math, and or art credit if it meets the certain state standards. So there's that legwork that could be done to make sure that if we can use this in another fashion for our students, then that would be fruitful for everyone there. The costs for this would be, you know, the textbooks and covering the fee with the enrollment, the current enrollment. However, we have an Intro to Teaching grant that we were awarded, and that money from that Intro to Teaching grant would be used to be able to implement this course. You know, some of the good things about it is that students can earn college credit and high school credit at the same time. These credits, Anoka Ramsey is a part of the Min-State, so these credits will then transfer to any of our Min-State schools, which could be 2-year or 4-year. Any questions about the CIS Human Relations and Multicultural Education course? No? Okay. And then moving on, the next one. Well, I don't know, I don't have enough power in my lenses here to see which is that it? There it is. All right, good. So CIS Educational Technology course, another course we'd like to add. Brent Willett is qualified and meets the criteria through Anoka Ramsey's expectations for teachers to be able to teach an enrollment, our concurrent enrollment course. We want to implement this next year as well. We have one section, and again, working with Anoka Ramsey to see if that would be a 1 trimester or 2 trimester offering. Recommended grade levels is 10th through 12th grade. All students, this would help fulfill our technology requirements. So this would be another way, another class that students could be able to fill for graduation requirements, our own local technology requirement. And again, it helps beef up our human service and education and training pathway. So when we talk about our foundations, CIS Foundations of Ed that we are currently using last year and this year, the Human Relations and Multicultural Education course, the CIS Educational Technology course, you can combine all those together, and we are making a very, very solid pathway for students who then can leave post-high school, get into post-secondary for a career in education or human services. The same with the first course I talked about. The fees for this would be covered by our Intro to Teaching grant. So that would include the fee for Anoka Ramsey and the textbooks and any training that our staff has to do to be able to meet all of the requirements that Anoka Ramsey has for us. Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you very much. Oh, wellness.
No, okay, my bad. I thought you were. I gotta get my glasses on here. Another one here, I'm here on behalf of Becca Kunkel, who is not available tonight. She has a CIS Wellness for Life class that would fall under the healthcare pathway. So this is one where we had talked before, we're building our CNA course. This would be one that would be housed under the Phy-Ed and Health Department, but would fit in the healthcare pathway. Andy Ziggin is qualified to serve and teach this class. We're looking at the potential for one section to be added in the 24-25 school year. Consideration with this one, it does have to be partnered with the CIS weight training because there are multiple components that align to each other. Excuse me. And so we would have to be very strategic in our offering when we place it to make sure that we don't lock this schedule in too tight for students that they can't take both courses at the same time. Again, it falls under one of our grants that would fund the concurrent enrollment fee, and then be using the curriculum and the syllabus that is provided by ARCC and the guidance given to them. It would be their textbook. Gosh, I'm trying to think here. I think that's a pretty short.
I have some questions on that one, Lori. This is the one course of the batch of them that it isn't kind of obvious what the course content is. And when you say that it's connected to the weight training class, that makes me think the weight training class is like a lab. This is like a classroom component.
And I'll be honest, I'm not 100% well-versed in this one, and I can get those details for you, but that's how I would agree. There's a classroom component and then an application component. What that content is specifically will be provided to us by ARCC. I don't know the specifics that come through the syllabi, but that is exactly how I see it. They are, as you look at the health, physical nutrition, the health, nutrition, physical well-being, those two will marry together. So it feels like a very general answer to you because I don't have the syllabus or the.
So this has a companion class at Anoka Ramsey.
This has a companion class that we already, let me clarify that. We already have CIS weight training as part of our offerings right now. So we would bring in CIS Wellness for Life, and those two would partner together.
The wellness component, does that have a companion course at Anoka Ramsey? And that's what we're basing the structure of this course off of? Okay.
Yep. And so Andy currently teaches the CIS weight training class. So that's why he felt like the Wellness for Life would be a nice partner. You can take the CIS weight training alone. If you want the CIS Wellness, you have to take it with a. So I would say, similar to how we're running the CNA course this year, it's going to run into two trimesters next year.
Thank you.
So to have two sections of it, because they would have to partner together.
Does anyone else have any questions on this one?
And then lastly, falling under that healthcare pathway as well, because you can see really trying to broaden our offerings here is first aid. We're going to have to come up with a short name for our course catalog. First aid, AED, CPR certification, healthcare career exploration. To put it all together to really give another snapshot and exposure to students in the healthcare. Rachel Starr, who is one of our Phy-Ed and health teachers, is very passionate about this. So this would bring in components with certification, partnering to give students access to certification for first aid, PR. In conjunction with that, really exploring what are offerings within the healthcare. So many times students say, I'm interested in the medical field, and I don't think they know all of the layers of the opportunities within that. So this to me looks like an intro level class that if we were to build out our pathway, CNA would be a step 2 or 3, where this really could be an intro level to not only get into some of the application of the first aid, AED, CPR, but also what are the offerings, what are the opportunities that come out of a healthcare field, possibly with a CNA track. So again, we're trying to build steps that students can go through to get more exposure to relevant career and college courses. All right. This one supported by the YST grant. So there would be some certifications for our staff, there would be some materials, but again, that launch cost of it all comes out of the YST grant, which Becca Kunkel oversees. I think that my last slide. So Matt and Tony, Heather, we will take any questions.
I have a question over staffing. Offering new classes, which I think is great. If we don't have, if the staff are already taxed with what they're doing today, who backfills the staff to teach some of these courses? What's the plan there to follow the falling dominoes to provide coverage?
Yep, so great question. So I think part of it, when we go through our registration process, some of these courses, and again, this goes for all of our courses, they may not be offered every trimester, every year. So when we look at the big puzzle of scheduling classes, we have to say, if there really is not the enrollment right now for CIS Wellness, we won't offer it, then we will look back at our marketing, what do we need to do, how do we get that open to students, and then we maybe put it out there in our offerings for the following year. So scheduling is a very complex puzzle. So just because we have a course catalog that includes all of these things, when students register, they tell us what they want and how we put it together. I also think, to Tony's point, a lot of the CIS, especially in the intro to education or the education pathway, a lot of our staff have degrees that support that. So if Andrea Hogg, who was a name listed up there, if something came with her schedule that she couldn't, we can look at other staff on board because it is such a, falls into so many categories. Find another staff that would meet the criteria through ARCC to teach that. Some are very nuanced, but some have much more of a master's, and I can turn it over to you, that we could backfill that with our current staff offering or the course.
Yes, so speaking specifically to the education courses that we're bringing in, a number of our staff have masters in education, which then says they can teach an education course at that college level. That's where the flexibility comes in. So both the courses that I mentioned today, those two individuals, they have the master's required, but we have other people in our school that could be able to fulfill that if it happens to be that something in Andrea's world with Spanish or the world languages or with Mr. Willett in Phi-Ed would come up as a priority. We can always search that out, and we have a close relationship with Anoka Ramsey, so we just ask them, we submit all their transcripts, their applications, meaning the teachers that would potentially teach that course, and they let us know. And there are some, though, that are very specific. We have, not as much flexibility when it comes to courses that are not under the education umbrella, because we need someone specific to having that master's degree for that content area. And that comes from Pelsby. I mean, these are MDE and Pelsby standards. This is not even something that Anoka Ramsey or another dual or concurrent enrollment partner has any control over. These are things that we just have to try to meet via the Pelsby board and MDE. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I just want to make sure we weren't creating a gap somewhere.
Yeah, no, I know. When you create those gaps, it just ends up handcuffing us, and it becomes a moot point, and we don't want to do that either for the staff or the students. Thank you.
It's my understanding that these are grant-supported courses with the exception of the Unified Art. Is that correct? So for the benefit of the community, that means that we have specific grants to support these courses, and if we don't run these courses, that money can't be used for whatever we want. It's a directed grant.
Thank you for that clarification. Yep, I appreciate that.
I just want to say thanks for being forward-thinking into what next year's schedule might be looking like and being able to provide additional courses for our students to take and still stay budget neutral. It's awesome. Thank you.
So I don't know if any other questions that Matt or I can answer?
I don't know if you're going to answer this, but based on what you just said, Jamie, we're proposing that these courses are added budget neutral. Is that true if we have 4 grant-covered courses and one that's not? That one is still budget neutral?
Yep, so we will use our staff development money to allocate time for Heather to make the plans for it. So that falls within our current budget.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? So this is an action item, so we need a motion to approve the 5 new courses as presented.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by Casey Root, seconded by Jamie Sieben. All those in favor of approving the courses as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you. Please know we appreciate just the time to listen and for us to kind of explore all of our opportunities for our students. So on behalf of Matt, our whole building, we're very grateful.
I want to say thank you, too, for coming to our work sessions. I know that pushes you very late into the evening, but it's always an opportunity for us to have a free-flowing discussion and ask a lot of questions, and we really appreciate that.
We see the value in that as well.
Moving on to item number 6, the final levy approval. This is a very high-interest item. We are very aware of that. We've had a lot of communication with the citizens of the community, with staff members, parents, and we're going to go through and have a briefing from Ms. Burkholder, Director of Business Services, before we have discussion and then the vote on the proposed increased levy. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Chair Ziebarth and board members for having me back. I have some slides that I just want to highlight and added a couple from last week to really dive into a little deeper. So what I mentioned from last week's presentation, that there's different factors that can affect an individual tax bill. It's the change in the value of the individual property, the change in value of all the property within the district, and then the increases in the levy that's happening at the different jurisdictions. And that the value of the property for these tax bills were as of January 2nd of 2023. So in the presentation, I put in some property tax examples, and I used Wright County's Beacon system. And so you can see, hopefully, it's kind of small, the valuation changes that are happening with these 3 individual properties, and then what their school tax portion of their property is doing for those years in comparison to what the school levy is doing. So like the first one, for example, in 2021, their value went up 8%, their school tax went up almost 4%, but for our tax levy overall that was approved, it was a minus 0.75%. So what they're getting on their tax bill is truly related to their valuations. It's not, you know, we saw a minus 0.75, they didn't get a minus 0.75. So again, there's a lot of complications that happen within the calculations, but you can hopefully see a little bit correlation of their tax bill in relation to what their value is doing. Another example, 2020, ours went up only 1.8%. And the second example went up 6.69% in their value, and their school tax went up 5% based on what was going on. Also in the process, the state heavily regulates the process. They set the formulas, the tax policy, the limits, and, in this slide, we just have a small portion where we approve the proposed levy, we decide if we're going out for a question, and we approve the final levy. So within every year, the state calculates a 40-page report for each school district. And so within that 40 pages, there's a lot of calculations that happen. So I just summarized the 40 pages in this slide and next slide. So for example, if I was narrating that 40-page report to anybody, the state is, what do we have next? Monticello? All right, what did they put in for enrollment? 4,000, da 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 da. Do they have a voter-approved question? Yes, they do. When was it approved? 2015. What was the amount? Does it have an inflation factor? Yes, it does. What was that enrollment that they're using? Okay, calculate that out. This is what it is. By the way, what was their enrollment 2 years ago? Because we have to recalculate that voter-approved referendum based on the actual students that attended Monticello, and we have to settle up whether that's up or down. What levy inflation estimate did we use? 2%? That's not enough. It has to be 4% or whatever it is. Calculate that, put that on their levy. Local optional revenue. School districts get $724 per pupil. What was their enrollment guess? Okay, calculate that out. What's their property values doing? Okay, some of that has to be in state aid, and some of that has to be in levy. Again, what was their enrollment 2 years ago? We got to settle that up, adjust it up or down. Did they have a levy that was as of, I can't remember what year it is. All right. Well, $300 of that voter referendum approved has to be moved to the 724 bucket. It can't be in that voter approved bucket anymore. Career technical. Do they have an approved program? Yes, they do. In May, did they put in the number of teachers they have teaching those classes, their licensure number, and their estimated salaries for the 23-24 school year? Yep. Okay, September, did they enter last year's actual salaries for those teachers, their file folder numbers, and how did that match up to the budget that they did last year? And we got to settle up or down. Long-term facility maintenance. Do they have a 10-year plan approved? That was by July 31st. Yes, they do. Are they a top 25, like, large district? Nope. So they're a smaller district? Yep. Okay, so they only get $380 per pupil. Are their buildings older than 32 years? Yes. All right, they get the full $380 per pupil. If they were newer, they only get a proportion of that $380 per pupil. So again, a lot of what I've mentioned has, we have hardly a lot of say on what goes in this levy. It's a lot of determinations, the inputs that we gave, whether it's enrollment, a voter-approved referendum, an approved plan, that's calculating all these calculations, and they have to settle up based on actual amounts. So again, not a lot of input that we can do to this. The second slide has the community service fund and the debt service fund. So the main reason of why we are going up 10% for this 2024 payable levy is because of our reduction to excess fund balance that is bringing the debt service fund balance back up to $3.3 million. So on this slide, it has all our debt bond schedules. So we have 4 bonds in place right now. So as long as those bonds are in existence, our debt service levy has to be around $3.3 million. The blue one is our 2015 bond referendum that was approved. The gray and green are the long-term facility maintenance plan bonds that go against that $380 per pupil funding stream. And then the yellow is our Pinewood HVAC bond that was approved in 2019. So there's a sequence of events that I can hopefully explain of why we have this one-time increase. So it's not on here, but in 2019, we approved a Pinewood HVAC project to get that system updated. And so we asked the state for approval, and that was in 2019. And so that bond can only be spent for Pinewood HVAC. We spent all but $920-some thousand of that bond, and so the board had to approve a transfer out of the construction fund, because that's where the bond payments or the bond proceeds go. We spend out of a construction fund. We had to transfer to the debt service fund what we didn't spend it was probably September, October of 2021, but it was for the 2021 school year. We couldn't use that money for anything. We couldn't use it for salaries. We couldn't use it for carpet or roofs or anything else. It had to be for that Pinewood HVAC project. So any excess had to go back to the levy. So every year, school districts have to send our financial data by November 30th to the state. So by then, our levy for that year, for 2020, was already kind of in motion. They don't look at the financial data at that point. So the next year, the 21 payable 22 levy, they see that we have a bigger fund balance in our debt service, and so they reduce our levy in 22-23. And so then for 23-24, our levy goes back up to normal. So I did a couple screenshots from the budget book, so you can see on the construction fund where we saw that transfer go out of the construction fund and into our debt service fund. And again, it takes the state a couple years to see that financial data. And so for the 23-24 budget, or for that 23 levy, we have a reduction into our debt service to cover the bond payments. So next year, when we do the 24-25 budget for debt service, it'll be back up to normal. We'll see about 3.6 million coming in and 3.6 million going out.
Tina, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
How did we get to be in a position where we had 900,000 too much for that project?
Yep. So in our project there, we had the option to do a couple alternates, but it wasn't working out of something we could do with certain vendors. We had to select the lowest vendor on whatever bid and alternates we selected. And based on past performance, if we did, I think, 3 out of 3 alternates or whatever it was, the lowest bidder was a vendor that we did not have good luck with. We had a lot of issues with, and things weren't getting resolved. So we only did like 2 out of 3 alternates to get this project done. So I think one of it is like the ceiling tiles and lights in certain hallways we could not do. So in the audit, they showed like how our fund balance over the last 5 years, it was around 700,000, and you can see where it was beefed up because we had that transfer in there and just waiting for the state to give us 1 year of a lower levy to get that back to normal. Overall, I think we've tried to maintain what we can. We've had flat enrollment where sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, where we haven't seen big swings in our levy. But overall, I mean, our average since we've had the first referendum approved, voter approved referendum, we've been about 2.5%. It's only the last couple years where we've seen the bigger increases. So tonight we have to approve a final levy, and it has to be a certain dollar amount. We could under levy with our long-term facility maintenance plan. If we under levied $250,000 as an example, on average, a $350,000 home might see a $16 increase. We could under levy the full unequalized long-term facility maintenance levy, where that's about $399,000. That would get us about 7%. But our long-term needs are long. For example, we have requests, with countertops or flooring, but our main focus right now is to be watertight. We have to focus on roofs, we have to focus on our heating systems, our parking lots, to make sure those needs are working. So if a condensing unit goes down, we're not accessing the aid that the state is giving us through aid and levy, we're at risk of using other sources, using regular ed funds or whatever, and that could push us into statutory operating debt or whatever, depending on what could happen. And also, you could later recoup those funds, but then you're messing with future percentage increases that may happen. My recommendation is to approve the levy as is, the $14,552,229.11. 9 out of 10 districts last year levy what is calculated. The state doesn't have numbers for this year because everybody's in the mix of getting their levies approved. So that's my recommendation tonight for approval, and I'll open up for discussion.
What happens if we go into statutory operating debt?
So if we go into SOD, that's when the state comes in and they run your school and tell you what to do to get back up to a positive level in your fund balance.
How often does that happen?
I don't know offhand, but I feel like there's a handful of districts that are in SOD right now.
questions, discussion from the board?
I just want to note that we're audited every single year. And if there was misappropriation of funds or we weren't using money appropriately, that would be noted on there. And every year they come and rave about how awesome our district is and our financial team managing our money. We're not a month-to-month budget. We're a big school district with a lot of moving parts, with a lot of long-term maintenance, and I think it's important that we continue to set our district up for success financially, to know that we can actually continue going without the state taking over.
Any other comments or discussion from the board?
I have some comments. I don't think there's any doubt that we're well led. Tina, thank you so much for all the time you put into this and presenting. I think that it's obvious that the board has been well educated on this levy effort, and the public has been, and we've heard from a number of people from the public. A few thoughts that I have as we anticipate what to vote for on this. We're talking about a $300,000 difference between the 10.01% levy and a 6.99% levy. That'd be $14,552,000 compared to $14,252,000. Am I correct about that, Tina?
So with the, let's see. So the line number 12, we could that's the place where we could under levy. So the max we could under levy is that $399,635.85. So it'd be $14,152,593.26.
Is that how we get to the 6.99%?
Yes.
Okay. So a few thoughts about that. We have learned tonight that our scores are headed in a direction that we're not thrilled with, and we're hoping for better. I don't think that the parents and the public is excited to see that. We've talked recently about being an open enrollment loser. We've talked about enrollment has gone down in the past few years, and my concern on this situation is we count on enrollment for state funding, and it was pointed out throughout this Truth in Taxation presentation that 18% of our funding comes from property taxes. The majority of our funding comes from the state aid, right? What would happen if we went with the recommended levy amount and we frustrated families to the point that they said, I've had enough. I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm leaving. Or we discourage other families from coming here that I think we take pride in attracting families to this great community. We all love Monticello. So those are the concerns that I have. And it's kind of a long-term perspective on this rather than looking for a Band-Aid of $400,000. It might be millions of dollars based on enrollment over time. So those are the factors that I'm struggling with as I consider how to vote.
So are you saying you're concerned that they would leave the school district and move elsewhere because they'll find their property taxes higher in neighboring districts because we have, fortunately, Excel right now that's helping the tax base, where if they move somewhere else, maybe, Becker, they'll get the solar garden eventually, but where?
Yeah, there might not be a great place for them in the immediate area, and maybe it's not a move. I mean, we've seen a shift to private schools. We've seen a shift to homeschools, and that might be part of what's affecting our enrollment numbers, and I don't want to encourage more of that. We want to tell those families that have made that decision that, hey, we want you back here. This is an excellent product. We're doing our very best, and we can give you what you want for your child if you send them here and entrust them into our educational system.
I mean, the only thing that I would say if we're talking values is if we're looking at the value that I heard is between $16 and $20 a year, and the word I heard was private schools, which a high school that's adjacent to our school district costs $10,000 a year. So for $19 a year, in comparison to go to a private school, which would be $10,000 a year, I think we have a really good product, and as the audit showed, that we are being very fiscally minded in whatever we do. And while cost is hard for everybody in the community, it's hard for every school district. Even $399,000 ends up having a price on us, and potentially a price that, as a board, you're faced with a whole set of new problems that you're faced with. And then one problem was talked about today, statutory operating debt, but there are other problems that come with decreasing your funding as well, because this is just one area of decrease that I've never seen before in the 19 years that I've been here. And we have a fund balance policy too, and that we would have to increase revenue or decrease expenses if we hit that. And all of a sudden, the very fund that we've always seen as a it's not a stable fund for every homeowner, because it does fluctuate due to the multiple different aspects that Tina talked about. But cutting that, and then all of a sudden also having a fund balance policy that we could have to cut, it just really feels like we're, I don't know, cutting something that we never had before, and then all of a sudden we have this other policy that expects us to have that revenue. And I just see it as enormous challenges to the potential challenges to the general fund as well. I'm just nervous, and I mean, I always go back to your chief financial officer of any organization, and when they make a recommendation, I mean, it's because they're looking at all aspects to keep us safe. And I think we've all prided Tina on and her department keeping us safe and within good standing. And to hear that, the entertainment of maybe not doing that, it just gets really scary as superintendent. But I mean, I get it. I mean, I understand the discussion. It's important to make sure that we have that discussion and serve our people. But that's just my only thoughts that I could add to this.
If you let me, we're not going to present a levy under the requested amount without having a solution. So let's talk about some solutions. So if you want to cut $400,000, Tina, how can we cut $400,000 without affecting classrooms?
Well, so this funding stream is only with our long-term facility maintenance plan, so we can't go as far as to replace roofs. So we're scaling back, and I already consider the flooring, the countertops in our school buildings as low maintenance needs. Like, I don't think we'll ever get to those needs until some of those bonds are paid off, where we can get that full amount again. So we're just restricting what we can do to make sure we have good learning environments for our students.
And then if you heard what Tina said, there are certain things that we can probably recoup from insurance and other, if there were a catastrophe, but there are a lot of unknowns that could happen. And the only way to solve that is to take money out of the general fund to fix it.
Okay, so something you can cut out of the general funding, $400,000.
That has nothing to do with reducing the levy, because we're reducing the portion of the levy that's tied to specific funding. We're not reducing a general.
We'll do some roofs.
Exactly.
I see what Jeff's saying,
Or you take it out of the general fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then.
We'll take money out of the general fund to replace roofs. So an option.
Or positions,
And by next year,
Wait
we'll be
till
taking money out of the
400,000.
general fund for other funds, other expenses.
That would also be a planned time of project that large, so when is that happening?
Roofs?
Yeah.
Year.
They're constantly worked on.
We need, the high school roof was original 99, we need to get to that roof. We have, I don't know, we're presenting in January of the scope of what we're trying to do at high school. High school and middle school are our worst buildings for our roof conditions.
Yeah, I also wanted to address something Mark said too. If a parent would choose to enroll their student elsewhere out of our district but maintain their property, the property taxes don't follow the student. They would still pay their property taxes to Monticello and pay whatever additional expenses they chose for their student. So there are plenty of families that don't have children at all, retired or elsewhere. So, so that doesn't solve the problem either.
Okay, so what are some solutions? I don't have a problem lowering the tax base for the person. I mean, I went up $56. If we want to reduce it, that's fine. But I mean, I'm not gonna say we're gonna go this night without a solution.
Your mic is off, I think, Jeff.
I mean, if you vote for a lesser levy, that's fine, but let's have a solution. Let's figure out how we're gonna move forward with this. We really don't have middle school athletics anymore. What do high school athletics cost in general?
I don't, I think close to $1 million, I'm not sure.
Okay. Hey, there's one option. If we don't want to cut staff, because if we cut staff, then we increase classroom sizes. And obviously, it's been well known in the district that people are concerned about classroom sizes, so let's stay away from people. What are other things that we can cut that don't involve people? Just off the top of your head. What if
We get away from Chromebooks and we don't have one-to-ones at,
Okay.
I don't know, sorry, Jason.
How much are you looking at there?
Because we won't get the value of what we bought them for. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's what, $200 to $300 per Chromebook when we buy a Chromebook. So and all the tails that we have with that, with the software and the licensing and everything else. I mean, we don't spend that much in paper. I mean, that would get us to that amount.
What if you freeze supplies for each building? What does that run? Just all out freeze for supplies for building.
We'd have to take away all their supplies budgets to get, I think, to hit that.
Okay.
So things like the Amazon card would go to zero. Is that what you're saying? Because that's a building fund. So when you look at the
So I
items
think
that are
on
in the
average,
consent
school
agenda.
buildings get about $100 per kid for copying, paper, pencils, notebooks, whatever.
And if we got rid of the Chromebooks, it wouldn't be a revenue neutral decision because they'd have to be replaced with paper textbooks and
Which would be
curriculum.
expensive on the
Very
front
expensive.
end, because we don't have that. We've made that decision to have textbooks on here.
You could, I don't know how much you'd save to go to the 2-mile transporting district boundaries.
What are we at, a mile right now?
So that would save a couple routes, maybe, I'm guessing.
It's 50,000 per route, if I remember right.
I probably know.
If you increase your distance of walking or own transportation to 2 miles. Okay. So I know you don't have a magic ball, but let's say you're 10% this year. What?
Because if we didn't have that debt service,
Is it reasonable to think that the levy will go down next year?
yes. Because without that 900,000 increase, we would be about 3%.
Which is
So-
pretty common for us.
I mean, our enrollment's pretty stable. I offhand can't remember what they use for the inflation adjustment, but I don't believe, I don't know, I don't want to quote a number, but if I must, I must. I don't think it'd be more than 5%, but it's hard to say.
I mean, I've been on the board since, I'll say 2010. And I know we've always talked about trying to be very conscious of this and try to keep the levy very close. And I mean, if you look at the thing like 2018 payable 19, we had the HVAC, so obviously those funds an increase in funds went towards that. But besides that, I think we've been very conscious of trying to maintain. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that it was 6 years that it was either 0% increase or it went a negative increase, which, and I think if you look at the total dollars of the levy from 2010 to 2023, it's probably considerably below the rate of inflation that it's increased, so.
The last 6 years is what makes that look a little bit scary to the taxpayers, because
Well, like last year, and then, yeah.
18, 19, and Tina, the HVAC project was funded with bonds, right? So that didn't affect the property tax owners, right?
No, it did. It's part of the levy.
And that was in 19, when we were at which
9%.
percentage? It's the 9? Then how do we explain how last year went to 7.25?
So that year, the state caught up on inflation for the referendum for 2 years. So they went up to 5 and 7% on inflation.
So if we fast forward a year from tonight, and we have hopes and dreams for being at 4 or 5%, and we just change that to 5 or 6%, or 6 or 7%, because that's the new standard over a 3-year period. If we drop this one down to 7, can we go to 7 next year and make everything whole again?
It's a 40-page report. I don't know how I can predict a percent for next year. There's too many things factoring in. What are the tax values doing in the district? The sales ratio is about 100%, so meaning that whatever the values are at, that's what they're selling for. And so other things factoring, enrollment, everything else, like, I don't know what I don't know.
Let's not change any other variables. Let's just say that next year, we already know we're gonna be at 4%, but we're gonna change that to a 7 to make up the 3 that we would give.
We don't set the percent.
Then what are we doing here tonight?
We're approving a levy.
But we're talking about reducing the percentage, right, or the amount?
Yes.
So why can't we increase it next year?
You
I know
can't
what the
increase
state-
past the max.
Yeah. Whatever,
If the max is at 5%, you can't decide 7% next year.
To go to the voters.
whatever they calculate in September,
Get that. But
It's
the
the
max
max.
this year is what?
and
What was the 12 we voted on in September?
12.
Can we talk about 12 in September?
Oh, it was 10.01.
It was? Oh, I had a dream.
I could think it's not 12.
Well, but this is, to me, this is by principle. If it was 12 that we were looking up there and we voted in 10, we'd have a lot of happy taxpayers. If you put 10 up there and you vote in 10, we should anticipate some phone calls and some emails. You're not working hard enough on our behalf.
And that's fine, Mark, but we have to find a solution. We have to, if we're not accessing these funds, we have to figure out how does it work,
And that's our job.
okay? So we need to find $400,000.
Which is 0.7% of our budget for a year. So if we get to work, sharpen the pencil, hopefully we can find 0.7%. Because every family in this district, including ourselves, have had to do that in our own lives at times. And we talk about how we can't raise prices and automatically increase revenue. That's true, but we can
cut
control
expenditure.
cost to a certain degree, and we have to.
Have you been here through a budget reduction cycle yet? This is, I know would be your first full year, so probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's our first year.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it is
Full one, right?
important to get curious about what, what would it have looked like to go through that? What's it like to cut 1.5? What's it like to cut 800? What's it like to cut 500? And when 85% and I know that this is, I'm just saying, if we end up having to pay for things to fix roofs and out of the general fund, then you're looking at trying to come up with those cuts from the general fund. And I mean, it's really hard. The morale around here, when you go through that, it's at an all-time low. It's really hard to lead this district when predominantly we run pretty good tax. We don't have as high taxes as a lot of our neighboring communities have. And I get the fact of we're trying to serve, our people the very best we can. But I think that serving them the very best we can is also making sure that we are the stable force in a community to bring forth people to our community. And I don't know that $19 reduction is what brings people to your community when even the people who spoke up against it, I know for one fact that a person just bought land like that week, one of the people who spoke. Another person said, well, at least we're not as bad as Maple Lake. I mean, I think people also recognize, but it just didn't get spoken about, is that we also don't have absorbent taxes. We don't have absorbent levies. We are a board that you are serving people and being frugal. And so I think what you're trying to do is exactly who we've been for years. And so I think it's exactly what I think we all want to be. And I think we do a pretty decent job of it.
Moving forward, as we move forward with staffing and stuff like that, the budget forecast, are we looking at reducing again?
Yes.
Are we looking at reducing?
Well, depends on when you want to start implementing that, because we'll go into the forecast in our budget committee after this meeting. But for 24-25, we are deficit spending, where we're still above our 8% fund balance policy. But after that, I have, a couple years of 2 million, 1.5 million reductions over 2 years happening. Otherwise, starting that early, so you're not deficit spending, because, as a financial person, I shouldn't be recommending deficit spending. We should right the ship and make sure our revenues are exceeding expenditures. So we have some big years coming.
Is there any further discussion? So we have to take a vote on the proposed increase that we voted on in September, and that number is $14,552,229.11. Am I correct?
Yep.
I move that the Board of Monticello School District 82 approve the proposed tax levy at $14,552,229.11.
Seconded.
Motion made by Jeff Hegle, seconded by Jamie Sieben. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say no.
No.
Vote is ayes have 3, noes have 2. The motion prevails.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 8, innovation and leadership. We're going to have building and staff and program shout-outs.
Good evening, everyone. Hey. There's a height differential here. It's okay. I'll hunch. It's shout outs for our staff. There's our ALP math teacher. His name is Zach Loff. I've just been really encouraged and learned a lot witnessing him teach math to our ALP kids. Very thankful for his example about how he goes about with a subject that is often an aversion for kids, but he makes sure that he is not an aversion to kids. He creates a real safe and welcoming vibe for them and invites them with healthy challenge, but helps kids get through math. And it's cool when kids come into our program, they don't have math credit on their transcript. And then this year we've had some kids that it's quite a barrier broken once they achieve that first math credit in high school, even if they're a junior or senior. It's been a cool thing to see. So very thankful for Zach Loff and his efforts in that regard. Thank you.
Cindy Foshing, Director of Teaching and Learning.
All right, I'd actually like to shout out, we have another height differential here, where'd he go? Yeah. I'd like to shout out a couple different people. So first, I'd like to shout out Lindsay Retman. She is our district literacy lead, and I'd like to shout her out for her remarkable dedication and tireless efforts in advancing reading improvement across our district. Lindsay has deep understanding and expertise in best instructional practices for literacy improvement. Her knowledge and insights into ongoing research and effective teaching strategies for enhancing literacy skills are instrumental in shaping a more robust framework for reading instruction in our district. Lindsay co-led the process of selecting our new reading curriculum for grades K through 5, but it hasn't stopped there. Her strong work ethic and unwavering support for teachers as they learn to use new resources is invaluable. She fosters an environment of collaboration amongst teachers of all grade levels and across grade levels with a common goal of implementing high-quality reading instruction. Her commitment to ongoing research in reading instruction and dedication to professional development is paving the way for success for reading in our district. Her strong leadership, whether working with principals, teachers, families, or community, is instrumental in fostering an environment of growth and learning. Thank you to Lindsay. I'm convinced your dedication will make a difference for Monticello. I'd also like to shout out Natalie Geyer. Natalie is our elementary digital learning specialist. I'd like to shout her out for her exceptional dedication and unwavering commitment to empowering teachers with technology. Natalie's endless efforts in supporting educators to enhance instruction, assessments, and student learning are truly remarkable. She is a master teacher and a continuous learner who shares her expertise across all K-5 classrooms. She wears numerous hats with patience and grace, from modeling tech tools in classrooms to providing valuable professional development sessions and leveraging technology for immediate student feedback. Natalie always thinks outside the box, developing tech integration strategies that lead to engaging, innovative lessons. Natalie's role in streamlining systems for data collection and analysis, as well as organizing electronic curriculum resources, is invaluable. Her proactive approach and willingness to assist, always with a smile, undoubtedly makes her indispensable to all elementary teachers. She embodies the spirit of professionalism, support, enthusiasm, and expertise in technology. Thank you, Natalie, for your outstanding contributions to Monticello.
Mr. Rob Daniker, Director of Human Resources.
Another height differential here. That was very eloquent. I did not bring notes with me tonight, but I do want to, just before I get to the person I want to mention, I do want to acknowledge my team in the HR department. Zach Harry, our HR manager, Sherry Holmgren, my administrative assistant, Tom Kickhafer, our payroll specialist. But I kind of went outside of my group tonight because I want to talk about getting to know the district and getting to know the wonderful people who work and embody this district and the work that we're doing. And the person that I chose, I've had multiple engagements with in my time here. And the thing that's really sticks out about all of them is that throughout the various and very, very different conversations and problems that we're trying to solve together and tackle. And it's always been an open dialogue. It's always been conversations that are focused on what is best for all. How might we solve the problem in unique and creative ways? How might we do something that is challenging but also legal? All of those things. And so I just want to acknowledge tonight Lynn Sockery, who is one of our special education coordinators. She's been, again, wonderful to work with as an individual, but really what I alluded to earlier, she's highly representative of the unique skill and talent that we have across the district as well, because that's not unique to Lynn, but I've had such interesting and unique conversations and problem-solving sessions with Lynn. So I just want to acknowledge Lynn Soccer tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Tina Burkholder, Director of Business Services.
So tonight, my first business office shout out goes to Amy Stahlbach, our controller in the business office. Amy has been my constant rock in my 11 years at Monticello. I've had probably 10 different people come and go in different positions in the district office, so I don't take it personally. But she has stuck with me. Her willingness to train and support others, whether it's in our department or in the school building, speaks volumes about her commitment to the business office team's success. When presented with additional responsibilities or ideas for office efficiencies, she rises to the occasion with a positive attitude. Her willingness to explore new areas, as well as consistently attending various accounting professional development, brings fresh perspectives to our projects. She is my budget partner in crime, and any successful audit, state monitoring, or financial award could not be accomplished without her support. So shout out to Amy.
Thank you. And for the benefit of everyone listening, each of these individuals is awarded a very beautiful certificate of appreciation for their work, and accolades are showered upon them, and they all get a designated parking place for free, right? So maybe a free lunch, I don't know, free cup of coffee. But it is a great award to take time to thank the people that are doing good work around us every day. We have a lot of weighty and heavy topics that we have to deal with in school districts, and to take time to thank those people that make our jobs better, that we look forward to working with them and coming to work, I think is really important. In the military, we have Company Grade Officer of the Month. So this is what I sort of equate that to, is singling out those folks that really deserve the praise from us. So thank you to all of them. I think it's always a surprise on Tuesday morning when they find out that they were selected. So congratulations to the awardees. Moving on to item number 9, Safe and Healthy Culture. We have a calendar change for January of 2024, and Mr. Olson is going to talk about that.
I'm bringing forth a request here tonight to adjust the calendar slightly for January. I believe the change that I'm bringing forward will help families because it'll align what their secondary students are doing along with what their elementary students are doing. So we had a pink day that was listed on January 23rd, and I am now proposing that that day becomes a blue day, which ends up being a workshop for our faculty, pre-K all the way through grade 13. So today, the change is just changing slightly. It does take away one student contact day for our elementary students, but that day does align with the rest of our school district. And when we were working with the 24-25 calendar committee, this proposal was made, and I said that I would look at it through the month of November, December, and just kind of watch the weather, just to see if we were going to be a winter like last year, where we did use all 5 of our at-home digital learning days, and so right now we've kind of gotten through November and then a good chunk of December here, and even with last year being a very challenging winter, we were able to navigate the amount of days and not use extra, not have to put extra days on the calendar. Along with the need for this, as you heard, with the goals and the things that we're doing as a district, our elementary teachers could really use the time to be able to put towards literacy and make sure that they're honing their craft. When you have students in front of you and you have a small portion every day dedicated to being prepared for students when they come to your classroom, but also applying the learning that's going on to a level that makes you proficient and effective. There is a great deal amount of time that is needed to do that. So I think this change accomplishes a lot of things that we're doing at the goal at the district and building level. So I'm bringing forth that change. Communication would be ready to go out tomorrow to our families, just aligning the unification of the calendar, and then our staff as well, making sure that our certified staff know what's going on those 2 days, and making sure that our non-certified staff, especially our ESS who work with students, because there would be some changes to that type of communication needed for them. We'd be ready for all that tomorrow.
Is there any questions for Superintendent Olson about the proposed change for January 23rd? So this is an action item.
I'll make a motion to change January 3rd as described.
23rd?
23rd.
23rd. Motion made by Mark Branson, seconded by Jeff Hegle. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. I know our teachers and administrators will appreciate this very much. Thank you.
Moving on to the School Violence Protection Program grant. Tina Burkholder from Business Services is going to brief us on that.
So last year, the school district, in cooperation with Northern Sherburne Wright Special Ed Cooperative Districts Becker and Big Lake, we applied for a COP School Violence Prevention Grant. This was submitted in May, and we were finally notified in November that we were approved for this grant. So all 3 districts plus the co-op are using the funds to look at either existing or new security camera and related systems to strengthen our violence prevention in the school buildings. There is a matching component of this grant where, at least I can only speak to Monticello, where we plan to use existing budget allocations, whether it's within the buildings or departments, to satisfy the requirement. And the breakdown of the grant is between the 3 districts and the cooperative. So for Monticello share, our grant amount is $223,562 with matching funds of $74,521. We're still in the learning phases of making sure we understand what all the required components are of the grant. So Monticello is the fiscal host of the grant, so Becker and Big Lake have to submit their bids or quotes or however they're spending their grant dollars to me before they're approved. I have to make sure, did they get quotes? Are they doing bids if they're over a certain amount? Are they using a state contract? What are the procurement requirements that are required with the federal government? And making sure that's all improved before they kind of move forward with their procurement process. And Jason and the other tech directors of the district working together to streamline how will these systems be used, how is it helping in our response protocols, working with maybe their SROs or principals to figure out what we need to compile to make sure we're reporting back to the federal government on how we are using the new cameras and systems. Anything I missed, Jason? Again, still learning of all the requirements we have to do. It's a slow process. We were approved in November, but trying to make sure we're reading everything thoroughly and making sure we're not going too fast on this.
Any discussion from the board? Questions?
Didn't we just update cameras in one of the schools? Was it Pinewood? I'm trying to remember back to the Capitol.
We had I think it was Eastview for sure that we did. So we have a lot of old they were probably replaced in the 2015 bond referendum, but they're slowly deteriorating and going beyond their useful life. So the first priority is to figure out the age of our current cameras and replacing the oldest ones. And can we go farther and put some new cameras in other places that we can't quite see?
Okay.
Because the goal of the program is to reduce, use data and show that these helped, go into areas that you weren't able to go into, and it helped.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure that
No, I'm just
just put new cameras in. We're not just going to replace them.
No.
The money, can we use that somewhere else? Falls in these requirements. Just because we have a camera, it's a year old, we are not forced to replace it.
Oh, no.
I have a question because this is applied for through the special education co-op. Is the usage for the cameras and the durable goods and that sort of thing, is that only for co-op areas?
We haven't quite talked about it, but ideally it was for like the rise or foundation type areas that we're making sure we have updated cameras in those areas.
What's the duration of this grant? Is it a one-time?
It's one time, I think, again, still reading all the documents, I feel like it's a 2-year plan to buy, implement, report back.
Any other questions from the board? So this is an action item to accept Monticello's portion of the grant, which is $298,083.
But I think as a whole, we just approve, because
Approve
we're
the
the
whole
fiscal
grant?
host.
Okay.
It's approving the COPS School Violence Prevention Program grant.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jamie Sieben, seconded by Casey Root. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. And now we have Mr. Rob Daniker, Director of Human Resources, going to take us through some first and second readings of policies.
All right, Chair Ziebarth, members of the board, Superintendent Olson, we have 5 policies for consideration tonight. The first one is a first read of policy 509. The purpose of 509 is the school district is required to participate in the enrollment options program established by Minnesota statute, section 124D.03. It is the purpose of this policy to set forth the application execution procedures used by the school district in making said determination. And so in the purpose, as the policy committee has discussed, and also it was a topic of conversation at the last work session, policy 509 does not state that we are or are not accepting non-resident students. It basically lays out the parameters and the levers for keeping enrollment open or for closing open enrollment. And so, so 509 does not commit us one way or another. It's just establishing what the various procedures would look like. And this is a first read tonight, so no action required on this one.
Are there any questions from the board on the first read for 509? Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, so we do have 4 policies up for second reading tonight. The first of these is policy number 104. This is a, excuse me, this is a policy that is subject to biannual review, and the purpose of this policy is to establish a clear statement of the purpose for which the school district exists. In the policy committee, we did update language in this policy, specifically regarding section 3, our mission statement. And so we included the updated and relevant areas of our mission statement, including our visual diagram, which I don't see up on the wall here, Superintendent Olson, but it's that circle feature that we've seen around the various classrooms and buildings in the district. So this does require action tonight. And do we want to go one by one, or are we going in?
I think we had decided to, what? We're batching them.
Batching, thank you, perfect. Okay, any questions on 104 before moving on? All right, next policy up for second read tonight is 524, the Internet Acceptable Use and Safety Policy. Purpose of this policy is to set forth policies and guidelines for access to the school district computer system and acceptable and safe use of the internet, including electronic communications. There was one provision in 524 where there's 3 different options regarding filter, and we consulted with our Director of Technology, Mr. Jason Borgstrom, to inform us of the correct language to use for that option. Otherwise, the policy committee did not make any significant substantive changes to the proposed language for 524.
Are there any questions from the board on 524?
just one more piece of information. There's a form included with 524. The form currently is completed by students and guardians and potentially a supervising teacher usually at the onset of the school year as well.
Any questions from the board for 524? Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on, our next policy for second read tonight is 535 and also a form. This is titled Service Animals in Schools. The purpose of this policy is to establish parameters for the use of service animals by students, employees, and visitors within school buildings and on school grounds. The policy committee heard pretty good conversation regarding this policy as well as the one that we'll talk about subsequently, which is policy 808, because they kind of work in tandem. So 535 really has to do with service animals, and service animals are defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we are differentiating the animals discussed in 535 from other animal visitors for a show and tell or for a life science class, for instance, demonstration at the high school level. The form that goes with 535 does ask the two questions which are available for school districts or entities to ask under the ADA. The first question is the service animal required because of a disability? The second question is, what work or tasks is the service animal trained to perform? As well, the form asks additional two questions which are relevant and appropriate if local ordinance requires properly licensed animals and also properly and currently vaccinated animals, which Monticello does. And then there's two paragraphs at the bottom of the form which lay out the owner and handler of the service animal, their responsibility for any damage, harm caused by the animal, and also the expectation that if the animal is not under adequate control, the district as an entity can ask that the animal be removed from the premises.
Any questions from the board on that?
808.
We're not quite to 808.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There yet, but on 535.
Great. I'm good.
You imagine what type of damage can you imagine a service animal causing on school grounds?
Yeah, I think just general response would be the typical animal damages that we might have, such as a soiled carpeting. Could be bite marks on different pieces of furniture, or walls or finished items such as that. Worst case scenario, we're talking about harm to a human being, physical damage that could be caused as well.
Do you have any idea how many service animals we would have on school grounds each day?
We currently have 0 current service animals identified as service animals on school property on a daily basis. There is one current family who is anticipating possibly bringing a service animal, their student bringing a service animal to school in 2024. So this is actually a relatively timely conversation to be having.
Calendar year 2024 or the school year?
Calendar, starting in January or February of 2024. Yep. Right. And Board Member Root foreshadowed policy 808. This one is titled Animals on School Premises. This is a local policy, meaning that this is a policy that was that originated within our district. Typically, our board policies have Minnesota School Board Association templates that go with them. This one does not, and so this is a standalone native policy to Monticello. The purpose of this policy is to ensure the health and safety of students while enriching the school curriculum and student support with visits, lessons regarding animals. And so we added, the policy committee added section 2 identifying the cross-reference between this policy and the policy I just finished discussing, policy 535. So we added language that says this policy refers to non-service animals. For district policy regarding service animals, please see 535. As well, I mentioned the MSBA templates that MSBA provides. We did take 2 paragraphs from their template for 535, which did not deal with service animals and actually embedded them in 808, and I think that actually makes this policy even stronger. Those two sections reference non-service animals for students with IEPs and 504s, and also non-service animals as an accommodation for employees if such a accommodation is requested. There is a form for this one as well. It's fairly simplistic compared to the form for 535. Just goes through what you might expect for a student or a guardian bringing an animal to school for, as I mentioned before, a classroom demonstration of some sort.
Any questions from the board? Discussion?
I didn't have a question. I have my numbers crossed. I was thinking 808 was 838. It's fine.
Anyone else?
We'll pause on that question until we discuss 838. Okay.
This references reptiles, which could include a poisonous reptile or a snake, correct?
Theoretically.
Are we comfortable with that? I mean, it says that they must remain properly maintained in cages or containers.
Yeah, and so that's, so part of the form indicates questions related to what you're mentioning. So there's questions on there. Has the animal ever bitten or scratched others? Has the animal ever shown aggressive tendencies? When on school property, we will restrain our animal in the following manner: leash, muzzle, cage, container, tank, other, as appropriate. And so, theoretically, somebody could bring a, poisonous snake. I would anticipate that the building administrator who signed off on this form would mandate that they were taking the safest possible route to present such an animal if appropriate.
Choice of animal. By the looks of the crowd right now.
Well, and that's
Cottonmouths and cobras.
Yeah, and just to circle back on that, with the reference to the building administrator, it does, the policy 808, the language does say that building administrators have complete discretion as to whether to allow animals on premises, which for the purpose of this policy would be eminently appropriate. I know our building administrators are thoughtful and diligent when it comes to things of this nature.
So these four policies, are we finished with discussion? Anyone else? These four policies are up for action items, and I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving policy 104, 524, 535, and 808, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Daniker.
Thank you.
So is there any additional discussion by any board members before we adjourn? Hearing no discussion and finding that our agenda has been complete, I declare this meeting adjourned at 8:26 p.m. Thank you very much. Board members, please, before you run out,